What's up, guys? Before I jump into it, my friends over at G Fuel ended up bumping code ESPRESSO up to 30% off your entire order in celebration of the Black Ops Cold War beta weekend. If you guys want to check out any starter packs, get a refresh on any tubs, whatever it may be, use code ESPRESSO for 30% off your entire order. Links in the description below. Black Ops Cold War's beta. It's been a lot to digest. I've been playing it constantly, both loving the game and also yelling at my monitor to the point where my neighbors probably think I'm a lunatic. The game has been a roller coaster since Friday for me, and honestly, I wasn't sure when I'd have my thoughts on the game's beta at large, but a few days in, I have a lot to say. Today, we're going to be running down my thoughts on the beta and what critiques I'll have for various different topics. I know a lot of people may hope for some gouging of the game, but that accomplishes nothing. What does accomplish something is pointing out the good and the bad, but also giving meaningful criticisms that can be acted upon. So we're going to try and do that here today. I can almost guarantee that I'm going to miss something, so if you have something you'd like to add to this that we don't cover, do be sure to let me know down below. Also, feel free to let me know your general thoughts on the entire beta at large so far, if you've gotten a chance to experience it. If you are new to the channel, do be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all things Black Ops Cold War, Modern Warfare, and Warzone. We'll keep you up to date with anything you need to know in relation to Call of Duty while on that road to 400,000 subscribers and beyond. But anyways, let's jump into the feedback at hand. Let's start out, I think, with the pros, the good stuff out of the beta, because there is definitely some stuff to be commended. While in no real particular order here, this gunplay is definitely nice. I definitely think there will be balancing that happens. There already has been with the 821, the SMG there, but there's going to be a lot that comes out of the beta and then into the full game, and even post-launch. That stuff, like weapon balancing, is always being acted upon, so I wouldn't worry about that too much, but the gunplay itself does feel pretty good. It feels like a Black Ops game. The gunsmith is definitely something that I love. Customization returns in the depth of Modern Warfare. I thought that was one of the coolest things that we saw within Modern Warfare, giving that depth to customization weapons. But one of the things that I absolutely love revealed with the beta is the detailed statistics. Those are absolutely fantastic and give you a much richer understanding of the weapon and how you're altering it will affect your gameplay. That's fantastic to me. Modes are a definitely fun range of gameplay. TDM, kill confirmed, domination, and hardpoint. Sure, those are your standards, which you're all used to within Call of Duty, but things like control, I love that that will be returning, that even though it's not necessarily an offer right now, I'm excited to see that come to the full game as well. Combined arms domination is solid and a nice takeaway for some of the maps. And I'll be totally honest with you, the new Combined Arms Assault mode, which was added in today, the return of war from, say, World at War, I love it. That's been my favorite since it was introduced earlier in the afternoon. VIP Escort is cool for, I'm sure, a lot of people, but admittedly, it's not really for me. But I still commend the mode, even though it's not my cup of tea. It's cool for those that may enjoy it. There's definitely a lot of new features that are really cool in terms of, say, customization. The FOV slider on console, that is a godsend to me. Like I talked about many times here on the channel, that's one of the main reasons I actually switched over to PC. That and an upped frame rate, but being that it comes now over to console, that's fantastic. So I'm in love with that one. I hope everybody else enjoys that customization that it affords. The HUD elements that you can turn on or off different items, that's a great addition in my opinion. Creates less clutter or more clutter depending on what you want to see and what information you can gather from that. The pinging feature, while I won't utilize it much, it's great for players without microphones. I think overall the TTK is nice here within Black Ops Cold War, though it does feel a little bit faster, which we'll talk about in just a second when we get to some of the cons, but it returns to that arcade feel, I think, for Call of Duty. I feel like Black Ops has done a pretty decent job at that in the last couple of titles. Whether or not you liked the theme of the games or not, I think overall it feels like a Black Ops game, which is cool. The new menu music is an absolute banger. I love that. I could sit on the main menu and just hum that to myself for hours on end. And no, that's not weird. Don't judge. And finally, one of the things that I absolutely love is that feedback is already in place. Things are already being adjusted, even just in the beta, from a couple of days of feedback and interaction with the community. Things again like that 821 balancing. That was made because the data we got from the beta, the feedback from the community, that was made because of that and in very quick fashion. So that's definitely nice. But that's some stuff that's good, of course, and there's a lot of stuff that I really do enjoy about the game, but I think perhaps some of the things that are the most important are the critiques that we can make so that we can hopefully make the game even better in the future. Which brings us to the sort of cons section of this, which just because we're giving so much feedback may end up being a lot longer than the pros, but I'm still overall enjoying the game for the most part as of right now. Let's start out with some of the general stuff. Firstly, hit detection connection is a bit dodgy at best. That's also why, again, TTK feels a little bit faster, just because there's different inconsistencies with different servers, different matches. It literally changes game over game. So when you're dying around walls, shots aren't registering, that's that dodgy hit detection. And that's something that will be tuned in time. It always is. That's something we have with every Treyarch game in their beta and early playtests, but that's something that is right now kind of a bummer. Lobbies, of course, breaking up, that contributes to that dodgy hit detection because you can't find a good lobby and ride it out in terms of connection. If you found a good lobby with great connection, you could, in the alpha, play with that for hours in theory. But with this breaking up every single game, one game may be good, the next 4 may be awful. Personally, I feel like in some of the gameplay itself, ADSing feels a little finicky. I don't know exactly what's entirely off with that. It just doesn't feel right to me at the moment, but that's something that I'm hopeful gets fixed out. Vehicle controls is one that I don't like what we have right now. Give me the Warzone mechanics, or at least the option to choose between what we have now is the Blackout mechanics or the Warzone mechanics for vehicle movement. I think that what we had in the last year with vehicle mechanics is way more refined than that of what we had the year before with Blackout and what's now returning within Black Ops Cold War. And even in the alpha, it was said that there was an option to be able to switch between the two. So hopefully that actually does fully come to fruition and we do get some sort of change with that. But next, visibility, I definitely think also needs some work. This is maybe more so map specific, and I also don't know if it's just a PS4 thing or what. I think next week will provide a lot more clarity on that once I jump over to PC and start playing, but I can't see players for the life of me. Maybe this is just me. Maybe you guys have this same concern as well, but I think that Crossroads is perhaps the worst and I guess best example of this because players blend in so well, even at a distance. I could even have a sniper scope and I'll still have a tough time spotting a player up on the cliffside because they just blend in with their white uniforms. This, I don't really know what you could do for it. Maybe just don't have matching uniforms with those environmental colors. Maybe we'll see that change, of course, as time progresses and we get more customization for our operators. But right now, it just seems like it blends in way too much. So maybe just up the color scale on that a little bit. That's just always a tough one to do, especially at launch. Combined arms in particular, I definitely think that there needs to be some spawn works. My biggest gripe here at this is the spawns on Armada. They said that they fixed it, but I don't think it's been adjusted because every single death that I have still spawns me at the very back ship, unless it's in Combined Arms Assault, because that's where we end up seeing the furthest spawn points are really dictated upon zone possessions, so that's something that changes as the match goes on. There's also points on Armada where turrets can absolutely watch literal spawn points, not like where you can walk into the visibility of a turret, but they can actually watch those locations. So to me, that's no good. Tanks also, I hate this is still a thing. Why do we need tanks in Call of Duty? There is an absurd handout of kills in my opinion, but that's something that I've been absolutely hating on Crossroads. As for maps, I get map design likely won't be reworked with what we have here from maybe say weekend 1 to weekend 2, but for future maps, I'd like to see maps with better visibility, less windows, or large travel points. My thing with the current maps are, let's start with Armada. It's too big in a sense that you're going to spawn at the very back of the map, you're going to have to take 15 to 20 seconds to get back into the action, and then likely die to somebody posted up in a window or something like that, and have to start all over again by running back into the action. I also think that the ship windows on Armada are too small and too abundant, kind of coming back to that conversation of Grozna Raid from last year in the beta with Modern Warfare, where you had to watch 24 points of attack before moving, which is definitely going to incentivize camping even more. Crossroads, I think there's way too much open space there in that field. That's something that, especially on things like Combined Arms Assault, it's kind of a death trap if you end up capturing that neutral flag. So why you have to push that way, it's almost likely to cut down a streak. Miami visibility is a little low if you ask me. Moscow and Satellite, don't really have too many issues or gripes with them. Those seem to be my most consistent maps that I do well on and enjoy the most. But then there's Cartel. Cartel. I honestly love this map for, say, a few things. Aside from the interesting spawns, my biggest thing is the bushes right by mid-map. To me, you have bushes that act like walls, and that is no good in my opinion. You can't see nameplates even if the player is right next to you, but that sort of removed behavior is usually reserved for walls and surfaces you literally can't see through, you can't go through, you can't shoot through really. So if that's the case, but you can run through a bush, why can't you see a nameplate or even at the very least, a red dot above the enemy's location. To remedy this, I mean, I'm not even really asking for the bushes to be trimmed down to see heads better, but my biggest thing again is just the names. Even just a red dot of something that you can see a player even right next to you, I think is definitely needed. As for specific gameplay features, one thing that I came in contact with a ton and have definitely used it myself is that stims are absolutely a crutch equipment to have here with this. It gives you instantaneous health regeneration, which is nice in a pinch situation, but it's also something that regenerates incredibly fast. I think it's probably about a 5-second cooldown time if I were to think off the top of my head, but that is something that, unlike Modern Warfare's where you have limited uses of it for an entire life, 1 to 2, unless you end up using an ammunitions box, that's something that it just continuously keeps you in the action. So it's literally like Stim Shot from Black Ops 4, which I guess isn't necessarily inherently bad, but it's definitely something that many are going to flock to because it is something that is so good in every single situation. Stuns, the other equipment, are definitely stupid powerful if you ask me. Here's my thing with this. A stun, I can absolutely see it slows you down, it impairs your visibility, one of those things, but the thing with the stuns right now in Black Ops Cold War is they stun you, they cancel reloads, they cancel equipment. If you're calling in a streak, it cancels that. They slow down your mobility, they tag you for even 1 HP of damage, so you can technically spam that in a sense that even if you don't get the kill, you get the credit for the EKIA. They can cancel shooting in some scenarios, and they bring your hand up, completely removing you from any chance of winning a gunfight if you're stunned in one. So they have so much packed into one sort of grenade that just becomes, one, incredibly annoying, and two, if you ask me, a little powerful. I'd definitely say at least cut half of that stuff. The biggest thing to me is remove the hand up animation where it pops you to a hip fire. That's just absolutely unnecessary to me. Danger close again is one that is definitely something I think of as an issue right now. This is something that there's no flak jacket to combat it. Now, I know we'll get this next week, but right now it's kind of wild to have the first, and for a time outside of the rank increase that happened yesterday, the only wild card being double lethals, which I'd say is about 75% of the time is grenades. To have no counter to that was kind of crazy to me. So danger close was something that I'm sure is going to be a non-issue come launch, but I mean, for the first couple of days here, it's been just insane grenade spam with no counter whatsoever. One thing also when I was looking at gameplay and watching back some footage is score streak cooldown I think could definitely be toned down a little bit, but maybe bring that down to 45 seconds as opposed to 60 for some streaks. The artillery also in regards to score streak I think should have some sort of indicator for positioning like most CODs do, but also a reduction in splash radius. Anytime, especially when playing assault, that I hear enemy artillery, not only one, do I not have enough time to really respond to that as is, so I can't really do anything about my positioning even if I did know where it was coming from. Two, I just kind of count myself as dead anyway because that splash damage is incredibly large. But bullet tracers also I think need to be introduced here with this, especially at long range engagement. You can't really see where anybody is, again, at that distance, so if somebody's shooting at you, you have no idea where that's really coming from. So bullet tracers I think definitely need to be introduced. Sliding is something that I think there still needs to be some work here on this because it's going to create some crutch movement mechanics that have been relevant in the last few years. Again, maybe not necessarily slide canceling per se, but there's already some stuff being posted out there in the content world that is unlimited sliding essentially, which is much faster than sprinting here within this game. Weapon rank up time I think is also incredibly slow. I was ranking up my actual soldier rank way faster than my weapons, and part of this is because of course rank XP ties into streaks, but especially for the beta, when you want people to experience the game, I feel like if anything it should be an over exaggerated pace at which you can rank up your weapon and unlock more customization and attachments for your weapon. I think that if we had a year to rank up weapons like this was the full build, this pace may be okay, but for a max of 8-day play experience for PlayStation 4 players that are absolutely gonna crush every opportunity they can to play, but for the rest of the world basically, that's not a whole lot of time to really work with and unlock a lot of stuff. And granted, my job is to even talk about this game and bring coverage about it. I haven't even maxed out one weapon yet, partially because yesterday I just got really frustrated, didn't really play too much of it, but overall, that I still think needs to be adjusted. Now, the final thing that I'm going to talk about here is one that we could talk about all day and night, but that is skill-based matchmaking. This is perhaps my biggest concern with this game, and it's led me to full-on rage like no other, and even vocally mention to people that I know that I'm just not having fun in the most parts with this game when actually playing. That I'm not liking what I'm playing because of skill-based matchmaking. Now, half of that is probably knee-jerk frustration reaction, but the other half is truly concerned. Let me paint a picture here for you. You're a Call of Duty player who's been playing at a top level of play for years now. Are you a pro playing for money? No. But in my case, I can hold my own in lobbies full of pros. I'd like to think that the pre-release footage you've seen here on the channel in the last few years can show that off, but if you're this player that you've played for over a decade, you're pretty good the majority of the time, and then you jump into the beta and you feel like you're struggling to get anything worthwhile, that's kind of a problem. Though, through my first 8 hours of gameplay, I recorded a total of 5 gameplays, each of which about 10 minutes long, I'd say, with only some usable parts. Now, this is at the very best way you could frame it. 10% of my time out of that 8 hours was considered good, and that I could think was worthwhile and worth watching, at the very best. Now consider that it's not a flawless game, and that I chop up footage here on the channel to showcase highlights, streaks, and stuff that again that I think is worthwhile and worth watching. That starts to get exponentially smaller at that point. Let's just say at the very best, it's 5 minutes of that average 10 is worthwhile, which is still over-exaggerated. That makes it at most 5% of the time worthwhile of 8 hours. But here's the kicker. In my first 8 hours of playtime referenced, my best streak was 9. Not 10, 15, 20, or closing in on a nuclear, but simply 9 kills as a best streak. Got it a couple of times, but that's nothing that's really incredible. I dropped higher streaks in early alpha gameplay against literal pros, the likes of Scump, Crim, and others. But a 9 was my best in the beta. To me, that is skill-based matchmaking ramped up to 11 out of 10. And admittedly, that changed a little bit here today, so I don't know if that was just something that it was because it was such a closed group of players on PlayStation 4, and those players that jumped into, again, the limited playtest here in the early access are the ones that really want to be there, but I was getting annihilated. Now, I know the usual comments are going to come in, as they always do when you mention skill-based matchmaking. Oh, Espresso, you just want to stomp noobs. How can you call yourself a good player? To which, before we even get into that, firstly, even in competitive lobbies like that, I'm still dropping 2 KDs at the top of the leaderboard, playing the objective and all, but maybe just not getting streaks, which I think are the fun parts to watch. But even the principle is a load of bullshit. I don't want to stomp noobs all day because even that gets boring. What I do want, however, is to relax and play with friends who may not be as good as me, to have a variance in gameplay outcomes, to be stomped, to be the one stomping, to have competitive matches, but to have that entire buffet of all of it. I can easily hold my own in any game that comes out, but I'd love to be able to play without that IV of G Fuel using code Espresso for 30% off your entire order, a scuff that's so hot from quick finger movements that it could light fire to fabric, and a headband holding back all the sweat that I'd be dripping. I'd love to just relax from time to time. I can't play with other people because they're subjected to that type of match, which often they can't keep up with. It's like a professional athlete. That's like saying LeBron can't play in a pickup game at his gym or shoot hoops with his son in the backyard. It's like a playoff caliber pitcher. He can't play catch with his young child and teach him the game. Instead, nope, you kick him out, you kick that 7-year-old out of the lawn, and then you bring instead Mike Trout with a bat in hand to play. I get statistics say that the casual player base sticks around more, and I get that. I get the bottom line comes first in a business model, but it's also to the point where the severity of it hurts your diehard consumers. My suggestion, as always, separate pubs and a ranked playlist. Now, what's the odds of that actually happening? Because the casuals won't play any sort of ranked playlist. So that in and of itself isn't necessarily too much of suggestions. But here's the thing. Heavily market that ranked mode with skill-based and a public ranked play and make it worthwhile to play. So you have the casual, regular public matches that don't have skill-based matchmaking, but you have something that players want to play with that skill-based. Introduce rank-based skins that incentivize play. Introduce rank play tournaments that offer COD points perhaps as ladder rewards. Something that is worthwhile that can bring the casuals over, but also not compromise the integrity of the arcade traditional shooter that multiplayer is normally. The very most skill-based matchmaking there should be is ping first and then gather those 12 to 24 players in a lobby and then balance that lobby based upon the skill so that you have good and bad players but balanced on both teams instead of taking the top 12 to 24 players in a 5-hour radius from where you live and then put them all in a lobby. You know, like 90% of the COD games in the past have been. So that's where we're at here with this. That's my beta feedback. Again, a very long video, so I do apologize for the sort of ramble here. And again, I probably missed something. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you made it this far, truly appreciate the support and checking it out. But that's where we're going to wrap it up. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops Cold War, Modern Warfare, and Warzone, as all that stuff has some stuff still coming out. But if you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get content outside of YouTube. But I live on both those, so if you guys want to start a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, the link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.